At its very core, the Disney parks were built upon the foundation of providing experiences appropriate for the entire family. However, that was all threatened with Alien Encounter, because while the ride was planned to become a signature attraction in all Disney theme parks, and an icon of Disneyland's Unbuilt Tomorrowland 2055 and Magic Kingdom's Discoveryland, the R-rated Alien-inspired attraction instead remains to this day one of the most controversial aspects in Disney park history. In September of 1984, on the eve of Disneyland's 30th year anniversary, recently resigned Paramount Studios president Michael Eisner was chosen as the new CEO of the Walt Disney Company, the first outside the organization since its founding in 1923.
Oh. Good evening. Excuse me, I'm just finishing up a little work.
And while up until that point, with the exception of Disney films, influences of mainstream Hollywood was non-existent in the parks, that was quickly about to change, as Eisner believed that the park catered too much to children and families, while ignoring teenagers and young adults without kids of their own.
For a long time I've been interested in trying to get involved with the Disneyland theme park.
And so shortly after his hiring, the former Hollywood studio executive began negotiations with filmmaker George Lucas, resulting in the most expensive film ever produced on a permanent basis in 1986. And just a year later, the first non-Disney film-based ride in Disney park history.
Some say it's the ultimate thrill experience, and others, well, they're a bit more descriptive.
I thought that it was the best attraction in Disneyland.
From its opening in January of 1987, Star Tours was a massive success, and brought in the fresh faces and new perception of the park Eisner had envisioned. And it was this success that led to his next idea, a ride taking place in the world of the iconic science fiction horror films Alien and its sequel. Primarily based on the first Alien film, the ride was to be called Nostromo, in which guests would embark on a rescue mission aboard the film's spaceship of the same name, and armed with laser guns, they would fight off the iconic and terrifying xenomorph alien creatures. But the idea of creating a ride based on the gritty R-rated Alien film, which contained graphic violence, strong profanity, and sexually suggestive imagery, horrified many senior members of the Imagineering team, as it seemed to be the exact opposite of anything Walt Disney would have wanted in his parks, and his vision of an optimistic future.
A vista into a world of wondrous ideas, signifying man's achievement, a step into the future, with predictions of constructive things to come.
So despite his enthusiasm, Eisner was eventually talked out of the idea for the time being. Fast forward to 1989, in which the construction of Paris's Euro Disneyland was well underway, and MGM Studios had recently opened at Walt Disney World, which uncoincidentally included an element of Alien as a show scene in the Great Movie Ride. It was also during this time that an aesthetic reimagining of Tomorrowland and both original Disney parks became a priority, as Disneyland hadn't seen an update since 1967, and Magic Kingdom since its 1971 debut, with the exception of the removal of the original waterfalls at the land's entrance in the early 80s, and in hoping to avoid having to keep up with society's ever-changing perception of the world of tomorrow, a new concept was brought forward.
L'accompli!
Inspired by Euro Disney's Discoveryland, which depicted a timeless and fictionalized version of the future, thus removing the need for continuous aesthetic reimaginings. Disneyland's Tomorrowland would be transformed into Tomorrowland 2055, which would depict the future as an intergalactic alien spaceport, and feature new attractions, dining experiences, and a replacement of the Main Street electrical parade called Light Keepers, with Magic Kingdom's overhaul not just inspired by Euro Disney's Discoveryland, but a carbon copy. story, which would have included an indoor reincarnation of Disneyland's original flying saucers to be housed in the Carousel of Progress show building. And in the case of both Tomorrowlands, Mission to Mars, which had originally opened in Disneyland as Rocket to the Moon in 1955, was to be replaced with a brand new attraction. So Eisner tasked a group of young Imagineers to come up with new ideas, and it wasn't long before they developed a plan to bring back to life his idea of an alien-inspired attraction.
That's rather presumptuous, don't you think? It is, sir.
With Disney already having the license to depict the characters of Alien in their parks, this new attraction would simply repurpose the Mission to Mars theater and utilize Disney's recently developed 4D show elements and binaural 3D audio, all of which would drastically cut costs. And when Eisner was pitched the idea, he was ecstatic, and greenlighted the project immediately, believing it could be a signature attraction in all Disney theme parks around the world. However, word eventually traveled to senior Imagineers, who were once again horrified at the idea, to the point that one or more unidentified members sought out George Lucas to talk some sense into Eisner. And a short time later, Michael Eisner approached his Alien Imagineering team with the news that he had had a sudden change of heart, and tasked the team, which now included George Lucas as producer, with creating a brand new and less frightening monster, with a new backstory and plot that could still work within the confines of the already in development attraction. But with the loss of the iconic Alien franchise as an anchor, the Imagineers believed that the ride not only lost its primary audience, but also its built-in parental control, as previously taken surveys had indicated that 80% of parents were aware of the films and its content. But Eisner was confident the ride could still be a success. And in January of 1990, a slew of new experiences were announced as part of Disneyland's ambitious 10-year expansion, which would include a young Indiana Jones stunt show in 1991 and Alien Encounter in 1994, to open alongside the new Tomorrowland. And by late 1992, Disneyland's Mission to Mars was quietly closed, in preparation for the new Alien-themed but not based on Alien attraction. But then came the financial disaster of Euro Disney's opening year, which in turn led to the cancellation of Tomorrowland 2055, and eventually a host of other in-development projects, beginning what many refer to as the Paul Pressler cost-cutting era. However, with Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland further into development, in which the Discoveryland retheming and flying saucers had been abandoned in favor of a less costly overhaul, it was decided that Alien Encounter would first debut there. And in October of 1993, Disney World's Mission to Mars was closed, beginning the land's transformation into New Tomorrowland, in which Alien Encounter would be its star attraction. But from the beginning, the attraction was rushed and met with frustration, as Imagineers were pushed to have it ready to open alongside Magic Kingdom's New Tomorrowland. But without having the originally planned Alien films for source material, they had lost valuable time not factored into the original production schedule, in having to create an original creature design and overall story, which boiled down to a company called Excess Tech taking over Tomorrowland's convention center. And when demonstrating intergalactic teleportation, an alien creature is accidentally sent to Earth and escapes into the audience. And while the ride's producer George Lucas had signed off on the initial story, by this point his presence was practically non-existent, due to his involvement with Disneyland's upcoming Indiana Jones attraction, which had evolved from the originally planned stunt show.
Welcome to the new Tomorrowland Convention Center in the Magic Kingdom, where humans can enjoy their first taste of the future.
And at long last, as most of New Tomorrowland had been completed, and hints of the mysterious new ride appeared in various attractions, the extraterrestrial Alien Encounter began soft openings in December of 1994.
Welcome to the universe of XS. You're about to experience the latest scientific wonder brought to you by Excess Tech.
Upon entering the attraction, guests would watch a pre-show attempting to give as much backstory and plot exposition as possible, which starred Jeffrey Jones and Tyra Banks. And immediately after, a second pre-show featuring SNL veteran Phil Hartman as a humorous robot giving a demonstration, which had been an idea of Eisner's during production to add some laughs before guests entered the attraction itself.
As you can see, our happy traveler has been safely reintegrated.
Unfortunately, the plan backfired, as unwitting parents and families who ignored the ride's clearly posted warnings had no idea what they were truly in for.
Prepare yourselves for an unforgettable encounter.
And through the use of motion-controlled harnesses, binaural 3D audio, and a host of 4D show elements, Disney created a terrifying experience like none other, in which guests truly felt as if they were in the presence of an alien creature, which after escaping, was depicted as killing a maintenance worker with his supposed warm blood dripping onto guests. At the show's climax, guests sitting in the dark would suddenly hear slow, raspy breathing from behind, with the aliens' moist warm breath on their skin, seeming to salivate onto their body and even licking their head. The experience ended with the alien being recaptured, and a gag involving one of the ride's characters being transported into the center stage tube. Overall, despite complaints of being unable to follow the story, or how the creature traveled around the room, many older guests praised the dark ride and its terrifying effects. The same, however, cannot be said for parents and families, who were outraged that Disney would create such an experience. And less than 6 weeks later, the ride was again closed, and began 6 months worth of delicate reprogramming and rewriting, which included a more sinister second pre-show, with Tim Curry replacing Phil Hartman, along with script changes and an alternate ending, in which the alien would instead explode onto the audience. All told, an estimated $10 to $15 million went into these changes, by which time Michael Eisner had begun to distance himself, and showed little interest in the controversial attraction.
Welcome to the all-new Tomorrowland, the first adventure of the third millennium.
And when Alien Encounter officially opened in June of 1995, while the alien creature and plot was more clear to the audience, it continued to draw just as many praises as it did complaints about its content, and was only a moderate success, which contributed to its initially planned Disneyland counterpart to be outright cancelled. And with the exception of appearing 3 years later as a video game at Disney Quest, the attraction would have no other incarnations as originally planned. And in 2003, a mere 8 years after making its debut, Alien Encounter was permanently closed. Less than a year after the attraction's closure, the ride reopened as the child-friendly Stitch's Great Escape, which utilized and repurposed many of Alien Encounter's show elements.
When the Galactic Federation attempts to teleport Stitch to a maximum security prison, he manages to escape into the audience.
And the space once destined for Disneyland's Alien Encounter became the Toy Story-themed pizza port in 1998. And with the exception of a still remaining Tomorrowland 2055 test mural, the land never saw its once promising overhaul, receiving only a Discoveryland-inspired makeover in the late 90s. But as far as why Disney finally pulled the plug on Magic Kingdom's troubled attraction, some say they were simply tired of receiving so many guest complaints, but others believe it was due to the 2003 arrest of one of the ride's major stars, Jeffrey Jones, which would have required extensive reshoots and re-recordings to avoid the now tainted association. And with the closure of Disney Quest and its Alien Encounter-inspired experience, only traces and tributes remain, with past merchandise having become valued collector's items over the years. But with frequent seasonal closures and limited operational times, rumors continue to persist about a new attraction taking the place of what was once home to the most controversial attraction in Disney's theme park history. So what about you? Did you get to experience Alien Encounter for yourself? If so, I'd love to hear your thoughts and memories. As always, thank you guys and gals so much for watching. Be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and I'll see you next time.